Welcome to the Hawks Corner.
I'm here with my broadcast partner, Phil Campbell. We have the distinct pleasure and honor of sitting down with the Hawk, Mohammed Shahid. This man is a fighter. He runs an organization for fighters. It is, in my humble opinion, the greatest mixed martial organization in the world. I'm going to have Phil open the question.
First off, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. The first thing I would like to touch on is the story of Brave Combat Federation. Relatively young as an organization, but in that time from 2016 to where we are now, talk to me a little bit about that, please.
I mean, if you think about Brave's story, it started before 2016. I mean, the whole idea was the passion and love for mixed martial art is the birth of the idea called Brave. Before even Brave took place or we thought of having a promotion, I mean, that was never in the mind that we needed to make an MMA promotion. It was just a love for mixed martial art. Just like all of us, we see that old days of when UFC started and we see the boxer against Muay Thai. It's the same organic love for the sport that we have and all of us have. And at some point you end up and you question the sport because me, myself, was an athlete once upon a time. And at those times, as a fighter, you're always thinking you're the center of the world, you know, and that is the most important thing. And you're like, I could be the best and I have to do whatever the promotion wants you to do. And you're in that mentality. And then you keep hearing these problems in the MMA industry, the sport industry. And then you start to wonder, I mean, how do you fix this? Or is it never going to get fixed? Or is it, do we blame the sport? Do we blame the athletes? What is the problem here? I mean, if you think about it, so this, I would put it in different areas. One, let's say the fighters' problems. So athletes themselves have their problems, and it's not just the athlete problem. There's a problem in the industry of sport where the business problem comes in, where the promotions don't make money. So you have a promotional problems where no promotion in mixed martial art can actually make a sustainable business, where they can say that, you know what, I'm having an MMA promotion, and in 3 years' time, that's my profit. You know, that's my expense, that's my revenue. You don't have that. You hardly hear about MMA promotions actually making money. And then you look at it from a businessman's perspective. Who do you blame? Do you blame the promotion? But they're not making money, but they're still running it for the love of the sport. You can't blame them. And then you look at the industry as a whole of what needs to be there in the industry to support the business or the athlete or the development of the sport as a whole. You need a strong foundation in the industry. And we don't have an industry where we have the best of whatever their side. For example, journalists, let's say. I mean, this is not saying bad to any journalists, but we don't have the top sports journalists actually saying, you know what, I'm going to start covering MMA from tomorrow. You see that happening now, gradually changing, and you see the interest of international news channels or news platforms actually coming in, but it never existed. So random lovers of sport, like yourself and myself, started creating our own platforms and giving out news. And we became journalists. But are we really journalists? You know, when you think about it, do I have the experience of being a journalist? We don't have. So today, you look at the sport and you see at 25, 26 years of a sport being created by, I wouldn't say the wrong people, but by not the experts. Not the experts. That's how I'd like to put it. So the promotions are started by not businessmen, it's started by MMA lovers. Journalism and media is created by MMA lovers. Athletes are MMA lovers. So it's a bunch of people who love the sport of mixed martial art, created a sport, and then you figure out that when you run a company, all of our family starts running a company and we don't have a proper CFO or a CEO or an HR head, we're going to have a problem with trying to make it a big company. It's normal. Not that we don't love the company, not that we don't care about the company. It is what it is. You need to have the experts, and the industry of mixed martial art today doesn't have the experts. That's where we come in and we realize that there's a lot of problems. So you have the athlete problem, you have the promotion problems, you have the industry problems. How do you solve this? Maybe we can't. You know, we're too small to solve this problem. So we decided, let's just help fighters as much as we can. And that's the start of His Highness Sheikh Khalid. He said, let's start supporting athletes. And I don't want to support only the top athletes. Let's support all categories of athletes. So it's like, what do you mean by all categories of athletes? So he said, the amateur athletes, one. You take the second category is the guys who are just turning pro. So they want to just jump into pro. They just finish their amateur career or not. Or they just want to go into the professional side of fighting. And then the third was the guys who are already struggling and competing in MMA as a professional but want to reach a higher level. And then there was the guys who are already at the top, like Khabib and Frankie. So we had 4 tiers of levels of athletes that we took in, and we said, let's try to give them resources, whether it's whatever an athlete in football or cricket or any other sport would get. Let's treat them as a team and not just a team where we come and train in a gym, but a team where they're a part of, let's say, a club where they get all the facilities for training, for their nutrition, for their supporting their family, a monthly income. Let's give them everything that an athlete would get, and let's see how would that turn an MMA athlete, you know. And then we check the result, and that's the start of KHK MMA team. And then we check the results. In 1 year's time, we saw the national team of Bahrain today is the second best amateur MMA team in the world. And we saw the results in the amateurs level that they're really rising up, and it's giving them the benefit of not wanting to go be a doctor or be an engineer, and they can focus on fighting as their career. And then we took the up and coming guys and we said, what if we give them the resources? And so that was the most interesting thing, because you and I know fighters struggling for 10 fights, 6, 12, 15, 20 fights to be in the top promotion. But the problem is not the fighters. We blame the marketing and all that stuff, but no. If the fighter is a guy who's coming in fresh, never fought a pro fight, but if the promotion knows he has a resource behind him, he has an investment behind him, I don't care, I will sign the fighter, because he's bringing in a much bigger resource that no other fighters bring in. Every other fighters bring in is just hands and legs to fight.
So it really starts at that grassroots level, investing in the fighters at a grassroots level. And we're starting to see the fruits of that as Brave Combat Federation grows exponentially and globally. So we're seeing that with young fighters who Brave has invested in at that grassroots level.
And you saw the guys who just turned into pro. We had Shahid Torres, who was a KHK MMA fighter, and his first fight was in Titan FC. You know, so they instantly signed the guy up because they knew what the resource was there behind him. So 70% of the job is already done before he turns pro. You know, first 5 fights, if I build him, he's going to be something special. So we had Shahid Torres going into Titan FC. You saw Franz Malombo in few fights getting the opportunity to get into go for the title shot for Brave. You saw James Gallagher in 3 fights getting to Bellator. You know, so these were our amateur guys at KHK team who turned pro and instantly got the results because they had investment behind them. And we came to know it's just not the fighter's ability. If you have a resource behind them, the promotion values it. And then you look at the guys who are at the top, even if it's Frankie or Khabib, and that's something I don't have to say what results they bought in. And what happened to Frankie even after coming to KHK, when you put the resource behind him, they didn't say he's old anymore, you know, and they gave him 2 other title shots, you know, because they knew there was something bigger coming to him. There's a bigger market that is opening up. That was the start of Brave, because we realized we are doing that only for 10 fighters. How can we do that for thousands and thousands of fighters around the world? Everywhere around the world, there are people with the same ambition and can be Shahid Torres, Franz Malombo, James Gallagher's in every part of the world in first 3 fights. They're missing the opportunity. So that's when we thought Brave should be a promotion that comes in. And again, the mentality was not Brave coming in as a promotion to compete with other promotions, but it was very basic and one-liner is to change the MMA industry as a sport industry. We have to change it, and there's so much change to be done. It requires us to be a voice. There's no point of sitting and talking about it or writing about it or screaming it if you are not something. Then that's why we started with Brave, and the first thing was to globalize it. And 2018, we're the only 2 promotions, one of the 2 promotions that did 12 events in 12 different countries, you know, and that was a message to globalize Brave Combat Federation. And we think it is just the beginning to change the whole industry of sport rather than competing with promotions. And like I always say, this is the Apple in the MMA industry, you know.
What are some specific regions of the world that you believe are underserved and are deserving of, in need of Brave Combat Federation?
I think, for example, if you look at Middle East, it's a big market. I mean, you have some of the toughest fighters from Middle East coming out. For me, they're one of the best in the world, and they never had the opportunity. If you look at guys in Russia, the same thing. I mean, now you see more Dagestani fighters in the bigger promotions. You see them coming up, and Khabib put up a great example to showcase how tough these guys are. But they were never having the opportunities as well. The Dagestani fighters didn't have the opportunity. I think Russia, the Far East, Eastern European fighters are missing a lot of opportunity. Middle Easterns are missing a lot of opportunity. I think it's not just this part of the world, but I think also the African fighters are missing the opportunity. And today you see some of the champions from Africa, you know, and that shows that that whole continent has talent. But how many top promotions actually decided to go there and invest in that continent? They haven't done that a lot. But I think it's every part of the world. I mean, I think Europe is missing a lot as well. I mean, we look at it and we're like, okay, you know what? Maybe European fighters are getting the opportunity. They're not getting that opportunity. And I think the whole world is an opportunity for development for mixed martial art. And I think it's just not one region, it's the whole world. And it's not because we or the other promotions are not giving the opportunity, it's just because the industry is not mature enough. And nobody is fighting to develop the industry, everybody is fighting to develop their own business.
So you've mentioned Europe there, how it's perhaps underserved as an MMA community. Is that something Brave Combat Federation is focusing on? Is that something Brave Combat Federation is looking at?
I mean, like I say, I mean, when you try to change the whole sport, you know, you can only do so much. You know, it's a heavy work, and it's not easy. I mean, we can always sit down and say, oh, you know what, Brave is doing whatever they're doing, but that area is missing. I have every now and then, every event that I go to, I have people coming to me and saying, oh, but you're not taking fighters from this part of the world, you're not taking fighters from Vietnam, you're not taking fighters from here. And I'm like, yes, it's true. I mean, I wish I could take fighters from all around the world, you know, and but you can only do so much, and we're trying to get into all the territories that we can. But I think the bigger vision of Brave and His Highness Sheikh Khalid is what makes us satisfied, is because Brave is just the first stepping stone. What we are trying to create is an industry for mixed martial art, make it one sport, and that will serve the whole world. And the complaints and the problems that I spoke about in the industry, it'll all vanish, because you need to have a strong foundation, and I think we're creating the foundation. And now we are a voice to speak about it, and I think we should continue speaking about it, because I think in MMA there's a lot of wrong messages being spread out. You know, we are the largest here, we are that here, our valuation is X amount of dollars, and it's just crazy how people put their numbers out there, and the people who are losing is the athletes and the sport itself. The sport is losing because we believe in these lies, and I love to be honest about it, because it makes me angry, not because I'm a person who's running Brave. It's just because it makes me angry as an MMA lover, because how can I spread lies to the whole world, you know? And that is where I think journalists and MMA media has to take a strong stand. Either they can say, okay, we are not journalists, we cannot do our job, we're just going to listen to whatever you say and we're going to make that a fact. You know, you have to do your job as a journalist, you know? I mean, that's where I think the biggest change we should start looking at right now is the MMA media clearing their heads and realizing that, you know what, it is time for us to do a real journalist job and find out who is the biggest promotion, who are the biggest fighters, what does these promotions actually do, or what does athletes actually do, or what does our media industry for MMA actually do. You know, that itself will cover half of your problems if the media does the right thing. You know, you get the right messages, the fans get the right messages. But today, that's where the fighters are struggling today. These athletes, today, if you look at Brave Combat Federation, the Jordan event we're going to have tomorrow, I think are some of the best athletes in the world. And I would stand, you know, and I would put money on it and say these are one of the best in the world. But the question is, the MMA media industry is the one that sends the message. And for them, they don't know what are the criteria to say who is the best in the world. What is the criteria that I would say this fight is the best in the world? They don't even have a criteria to say why is this promotion the best promotion in the world. There's no criteria, and it's a shame, but I think the future is bright. And that's where we are coming in. We see the support that His Highness is doing for the Amateur Mixed Martial Art Federation, IMMAF. Our collaboration with them has been very strong, and we've been really bringing all the countries together, working with these federations to develop MMA from the grassroots as we did in Bahrain. We're giving that opportunity and that ideas into all the different countries and scouting talents and creating a global ecosystem. And a global ecosystem will be created only if you have a national ecosystem. So we're helping each and every federation. In Bahrain, we have at least 80 countries coming for the World Championship, and all these 80 countries, even if 50 countries build a national ecosystem that can connect to a global ecosystem for mixed martial art, it will change the sport 100%. And I think we are on the right track to make that happen. It's gonna, in the next 5 years, I would say that mixed martial art is not gonna be in the event business, it's gonna be in the sports business.
So that's kind of the long-term objective. Let's talk about right here, right now. We're in Amman, Jordan, a beautiful country, people with a real thirst for mixed martial arts. What has the atmosphere been like for you since you've arrived in Jordan?
I mean, it's a very important thing to realize that mixed martial art or combat sport in Middle East is Jordan. You know, so Jordan bought the best athletes, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's MMA, whether it's stand-up fighting, kickboxing, Muay Thai. Some of the best combat sport athletes in Middle East came out from Jordan. Why wouldn't we come here and make an event in Jordan? You know, it has to happen. You know, you have to bring. This is that place where you have if you look at the Middle Eastern promotion that existed before, all the champions were Jordanians. You look at the event that really happened, where the big events took place, was in Jordan. And I think that that's why for us, even though you might not have the greatest financial benefit, but you see the weigh-ins like this and it makes you so happy because the passion of the fans is insane. I mean, how much they love their fighters, how much they love fighting itself. And you have all different cultures here, you know. You have different cultures. You have the Shirkas culture, you have the Palestinian Jordanians, you have the Jordanian Jordanians, and you see how they support their own, you know, and it's really fun. And I think every time we think of making an event in Jordan, we're like, it's going to be a tough event. To make an event in Jordan is going to be tough. But as soon as the event happens and we come and see the weigh-ins and we go to the venue and see the fans, we're like, it's worth it, you know, because the passion that they have, I think it's insane. And this is what we really want to do, take it to the places where they have the passion for the sport and what they're willing to accept the sport. And everything else doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Just take the sport there, give them what they want. The talent is going to come out. It doesn't matter if they have the greatest gym, you have the most branded gym in the world coming there and making, having this, let's say, a gym of that brand in Jordan, but it doesn't matter. You see the athletes coming out. They might not have the greatest facilities, but they're coming out and being one of the best athletes in the world, and I think that is what matters to us. Jordan will be an important country for Middle East in mixed martial art, and we will continue to be here as long as we can, because I think that would be a shame to take MMA away from a country that loves MMA. If you can put it that way, we would say that MMA started in Middle East from Jordan. You know, that's where the sport in Middle East actually started rising. It's all for them.
That was a characteristically brilliant explication of the last year and of right now. I wonder if you can look forward for us to the next year, the next 12 months, 18 months. I know some of the things you're not at liberty to talk about right now, but do you have some plans for the next 12 to 18 months that you could discuss?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have a huge plan for 2020, and all those plans will be revealed this year, and that's what we're looking at. But we'll also have a very, very interesting news for November that we'll be announcing in the next 1 month. Every event we have in the Combat Week in November in Bahrain, it has to be something special, you know. So we always like to add something special, but every time we add that specialty to it, it has to be something that is not just for entertainment. It should not be just a freak show fight that we want to bring in to make sure that, oh, you know what, that was a great event, we bought this guy to fight this guy.
It has to fall in line with the ethos of Brave.
Exactly. We have to do something that gives a value to mixed martial art, and people don't get the idea. What Brave Combat Federation is doing is adding value to mixed martial art. If I am a businessman, if I am an investor, if I am not in the sports business, and if MMA needs to grow tomorrow, if MMA needs to be in Olympics, if MMA needs to be considered as one of the federations or one of the sports that is a rich sport, and if MMA needs to be considered as a sport where you and your kids can actually decide that, okay, my son is going to be an MMA fighter, and it's not a bad thing to talk about it, because he's going to have a well-off life. You know, he's going to be settled. He's going to have a good future, and I will be proud to tell my family that my son is an athlete, and mixed martial athlete. Today, I don't know if that's. I could just say that, oh, he's a fighter, but it's not like saying that my son is playing in Barcelona or Real Madrid. You know, there's a big difference with that. So I think we're trying to add value to mixed martial art. That when people look at mixed martial art, they will know that if we have to invest in it, or if we have to bring MMA to our country, it's worth it. It gives a nation what they want. It gives a businessman and investors what they're looking for. Mixed martial art is not just a sport. It is a very strong platform that brings the whole world together. It has the potential to do that. And I think whatever we do, every next step that we take has to add value to mixed martial art. And in November, what we're going to be announcing is going to add a huge, huge value to mixed martial art as a sport. And we have a lot more announcements to make this year. As I was saying, Brave is just the first stepping stone, you know. I mean, this is where it all starts. This brand is going to be taking that brave decisions for the sport of mixed martial art, and I think that's why the name is so important for us. Brave is because we have to go out there and put our necks on the line. You know, this is it's whatever this promotion has done, whatever His Highness Sheikh Khalid has done, it has been a brave step, because it was not about getting financial gain. It was going out there and globalizing the sport. It was going to every new country and putting on a big event. It was signing fighters and giving them a big payday that they would never get even in the biggest promotions. So we want to develop that side, and it's too risky. If you ask any financial person who has a knowledge on finance, they would all look at us and put an X mark on our strategy. But that was a brave decision His Highness took and said, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be globalizing. We're going to go to 12, we're going to make 12 events a year in 12 different countries. It's going to be tough, yes, it's going to be tough, you know, but that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be signing fighters and giving them whatever they deserve. We're going to take those big steps. So I think the next steps that we'll be taking is building those national ecosystem and globalizing the mixed martial art. The last 2 years was years. If you look at 2016 was just 2 events. 2017 was our first full year for Brave, and 2018 we did the 12 events in 12 different countries to show we can globalize. 2019 we're going to start the engine towards globalizing the sport, creating that global ecosystem for the sport of mixed martial art, and it's going to grow outside of Brave. We did what we had to do with Brave, and Brave will continue doing what it has to do, but we're going to stand on top of Brave and start going more into the sport industry and bring the sports industry closer to mixed martial art, and I think that is the most biggest value mixed martial art could have.
Wow. My next question relates to an anecdotal experience. I started working for Brave about a year ago. People would say, where are you going? I said, for the very first one, I'm going to Manama, Bahrain. They're like, where's that? And I don't get that now. People at my gym, people across the United States, when I speak with them, they're like, Bahrain is where Brave is.
Right.
And I'm wondering if you could speak to the effect that Brave has had on Bahrain.
Oh, it's been amazing. I mean, it's just an example of what Brave can do. I mean, when we speak about value of mixed martial art, that's what a value of a brand, let's say, just Brave. It's smaller than the sport itself, you know, it's just a brand. And what that brand can add value to a country, it's unbelievable. You know, I mean, we go around the world, we showcase the world. If you're in Jordan, the rest of the world knows what Jordan is and what happens in Jordan, what's going on, the Jordanian athletes, the country itself, and the resources the country has. So we're actually giving the nation what it wants through the brand. One of the biggest examples is Bahrain itself. The whole world now, in the MMA world, Bahrain has become the actual mecca for mixed martial art. You have the whole world coming every year to Bahrain. The young top talents around the world that are going to be the next big thing are in Bahrain competing against each other. It's maybe the best week of my life is to be in that week. No sleep, you know, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. We're 12 hours just there, 4 cages in one venue, fights happening, all different 4 cages, courses for coaching going on, courses for refereeing going on, all that stuff happening. You know, it's an amazing time for us. That shows the sport is growing, you know, there is a great bright future ahead, and Bahrain celebrates it, you know, and Bahrain is always known for developing sports, whether it's MMA or anything else. They've been so strong with sports in the whole of Middle East and the world. I think for us, I would say that it's great to have the World Championship happen in Bahrain because it has complemented each other. The whole world in MMA now knows Bahrain, but at the same time, the mixed martial art as a community benefited from having one of the best world championships. You see a lot of games that are combat games or whatever of these games, they're not happening for the past 6-7 years. And they're like, well, why is it not taking place? What's going on? Everybody has problems, you know. But if you look at the world championship for amateur MMA, it's taking place with fireworks, you know. So it's like they're looking at it and they're like, why is MMA putting on such a great show? And I think that was a value Bahrain could give to mixed martial art, IMMAF, and IMMAF could give to Bahrain was to let the MMA community know what His Highness Sheikh Khalid and Bahrain is doing for mixed martial art. So I think it's something that month of November and the combat week is always going to be a special week for us to always take mixed martial art one step forward in the sports world. You know, it's not about Brave, it's not about us, it's not about anything else. It's just how can we take, as every year passes by, how can we take mixed martial art as a sport one step forward to reaching the levels of the rest of the sport, all the other sports, you know, and we have the potential to do that. There's no sport in the world that can be actually is as global as mixed martial art, and I think it's a shame when we all start who are in the industry, and we're all mixed martial art lovers, like I said before. We're not experts, we're mixed martial art lovers, and we fight against each other to see who's better, and we're like, hey, join hands together. None of us is bigger than the sport. Let's all join hands because this sport is more bigger than any other sport. Join hands and create the sport, take the sport to where it has to reach, you know, and I think that's a message the whole mixed martial art industry have to know, rather than competing against, I am the best in this region, you're the best in that region. Let's stop that and try to develop the sport, you know. And I think the first step to that, to making that happen, is I think the media of mixed martial art has to take up that step and understand that we are responsible for the growth of the sport. We have a huge role to play and they have to realize that responsibility, and then things would change really, really quick.
Tell the fans at home just how big this card is. Tell Brave Nation just how important this card is.
I mean, it's. I always sit down and I tell people, and I always try to wonder that, and it's because when I used to be a fighter, like I said, you always feel that you're the center of the world, and you cannot be a pro fighter and want to achieve the world championship without thinking you're the best in the world. You have to have that mentality. You have to be a little crazy to feel like I can beat anybody, And when I was young, I always looked up to Fedor, and my goal in life was to fight Fedor. I didn't know weight classes, I didn't know anything. I said, I want to fight Fedor because he's the best fighter, and I lived day and night dreaming about fighting him. That was my only goal. So I understand the mentality of each fighter. There's no way anyone could have told me at that point, you're not the best in the world, and you see the whole world, fighters around the world have the same mentality that they're the best in the world. How do we categorize and say you are not the best in the world, that they're the best in the world because they're fighting here, they're making this much money, so I don't really understand the criteria for saying what's the best fighters in the world. With Brave, we've taken that mentality out and we said, let's really bring the best in the world. How do you understand the best in the world? From fights, from actually fighting around the world. You cannot say you're the best by sitting in one part of the world and competing in that part of the world. No, you got to fight around, all over the globe. Don't stay in, you see the US fighters going outside of US and they come into the Asian region and they're not performing as well as the Asians are not performing as well when they go to the West, and it's a normal thing. You have to, if you're the best in the world, you have to go outside in an international territory and compete and fight the best on the world. If I have to tell you before, the world's best fighter, if that name existed, if there really existed one guy, the best fighter in the world, the greatest fighter of all times, this guy would be a guy that would go to Thailand and fight the best Thai fighter. He would go to India and fight the best wrestler. That's that guy. He could go around the world and beat anybody. That's the greatest fighter in the world. That myth that we always love to think of as athletes. So we want to create that atmosphere. We want to take athletes, put them in the most uncomfortable positions, going from Brazil to Bahrain, Bahrain to USA, around the world, go to every different region and compete against each other, against the best in the region. So if you say you are the best fighter, in Middle East, you're not the best fighter. In Middle East, Jarrah is the best fighter. But in India, it could be somebody else. It could be their fighter. In US, it could be somebody else. So every region has their best fighters. Let's take the best in all the regions and compete against each other. Regardless of marketability, they don't speak English, doesn't matter. Let's take the best amongst in the world and compete against each other. That's what Brave's been doing. And in the beginning stages, of course, the scouting is tough. It's not an easy job. Our matchmaker Yusuf Nassar is doing a very great. He's one of the biggest MMA fans I've seen in my life. So it's so good to have a guy like him who watches every fight in any country. That's his life. So we got the best fights in all the regions, and we kept developing, and eventually the fight card that you see in Jordan is a result of that vision to bring the best against each other, and you just grind out the guys who some you must have thought they're the best, some are actually good, and then you see those levels changing, and finally you get this group of fighters that has broken all laws of fighting. And if you thought that jiu-jitsu school is the best jiu-jitsu school in the world, as per the media of mixed martial art or the jiu-jitsu media, and then you see this guy destroying the guys in the cage, on the ground, and you see, what the hell just happened? And you say, these guys are the best wrestlers, and the other guy wrestling the guy for 3 rounds or 3 minutes. You see the differences, and then you bring those top talents together, and finally you reach to a card like Jordan card, where today, all three of us have been growing with Brave together. We've all seen most of the Brave events, and today when we sit down, this is a fight card. We look at it and we're like, I don't want either one to lose, but somebody has to lose. But I really don't know who's going to lose. We are in that situation. This is a fight that we'll just sit and watch and enjoy. There's nothing you can do. These are the best fights in the world. These are literally the best fights in the world. And if somebody asks me, hey, 5 minutes back in the same interview, you said, what is the criteria to put the best fighters in the world? And now you claim that they're the best fighters in the world. Isn't that a little bit contradicting? Yes, it is definitely contradicting. And I'll tell you why. It's because I can today say that these are the best fighters in the world because I have the right to do it, because I might be the only one, or Brave is the only promotion that has actually taken the steps towards bringing the world's best fighters together. Anybody can sit right in front of me and argue on that point with me. are you really scouting the best fighters in the world? Or are you scouting fighters who speak English well? Or are you scouting fighters who are marketable? Or are you scouting fighters who have a good fan base back in their home? If they say, no, that's not what we're looking at, you can take a list of names that I could present on the table to every different promotions on why these fighters losing 4 or 5 fights against competition that are not big are signed into the promotion, you know. So this is real, man. I mean, this is not marketing, this is not promoting the brand, this is nothing. I'm talking real stuff here, and I just don't like to use names, but this is real stuff that the mixed martial art industry has to take into consideration, because there's no hiding from this. It doesn't matter if the MMA media industry wants to hide it and take the news that is that can actually go out there and have more viewers. I don't care, but I'll go out and speak this every single day, that the MMA industry and promotions are doing is wrong, and they don't have the best fighters because they're not taking the steps towards building the best fighters. If you did, you wouldn't miss the 20 fighters that are going to be competing tomorrow. How did you miss these 20 fighters? And these are the best in the world, you know. And if you were scouting the best, you wouldn't miss these guys, because these are the best in the world. And we have done the job. I'm not saying we did the best job. I'm not saying this is how it should be, and that's why I'm saying that there's a huge room for improvement. It's one entity, one brand, or one person cannot handle that. Change a sport or control a sport. It's too big for a person, it's too big for a brand, or it's too big for a company. It has to be a hands joined by 4 to 5 different entities together, and that's what we're trying to work together to build and join hands to create a sports mixed martial arts global ecosystem that is going to be one sport. And at least today, if we have to say who are the best fighters in the world, I would say we have the right to do it, because we've gone around the world and scouted the best, made them fight against each other till we got a card like Jordan fight card. So coming back to the question, that's how important this fight card is, because this is literally the best fighters from the world. It's big for Brave. It's not because it's a great fight card. It's just because it's that borderline that we've reached for what we've done in the past 22 events. In the past 22 events, we've been scouting fighters to fight against each other. Many of them, after the fights, we don't know where they go. You know, it's just signing fighters to see who's the best of the best. And finally, we get this group of fighters. And what do? We put them against each other. We're not trying to build anybody. We're not trying to get that guy to show that, okay, let's market this guy because he's a great fighter. Let's make him win 20 fights. No. If you guys are the best fighters, fight against each other, because out of you two, one of them is going to be the best fighter again. You know, so it's never going to stop, and that's the sport all about. Let's not forget how the sport of mixed martial art was built and how it started. All the credit goes to UFC for doing what they've done for the sport and how it started. And let's not forget that. Today, we forgot where it started from, how it started, and why were we all such crazy fans of mixed martial art, is because we really want to find out who's the best fighter in the world. And we've gone slightly away from that goal today, that we are not looking for the best fighter in the world. We're looking for a fighter who has the biggest interest in the world. And Brave is bringing that back. And I think that is for us the biggest objective outside of the whole developing the mixed martial art. The biggest objective day to day is to make sure that, let's not forget where we come from, let's not forget what the sport is all about. Mixed martial art is the best fighters from any martial arts coming together to showcase that they're the best in the world. And we're trying to scout that, and we have that today. And the Jordan event, you're going to see the best welterweight, the best lightweight, the best super lightweight, and the top fighters around the world competing against each other. And these guys need the credit. It doesn't matter what if they have the media support on that from the MMA media. It doesn't matter to me. For me, I would say it loud, these are the best fighters in the world, and we have a track record for the past 22 events to prove it. And the future is just going to be scouting more and more top talent. So from now onwards, you see the fight cards that's going to be going forward in the rest of the Brave. It's always going to be the best fighting against the best, you know, and that's what we want to put forward and showcase what Brave is all about.
One of the things that MMA fans love to do is talk about the pound for pound best. I wonder if you could address, in your opinion, who are some of the pound for pound best fighters on the Brave roster, and are we going to see them on Friday night?
Again, the term pound for pound, I really don't understand that. If you want to find out who's the best pound for pound fighter, this is what we're going to do. We put up a fight and we say, let's find out who's the pound for pound best fighter, right? Let's say, let anyone fight anybody, you know? I mean, what other way? If I say I'm the best fighter in the world, let me fight anybody. I'm gonna say, no, he's not in my weight class. don't even talk about pound for pound. You have a problem with weight class? Then talk about your weight class. If you want to talk about pound for pound, then let's make an event where we have anybody in any weight class, flyweight, heavyweight, fight against each other. Let's do that.
Old school open weight Grand Prix.
You know what? Let's do it. In November, this November, we're going to make an open weight class where we're going to have a fight, and we're going to do a one-day tournament where we will select 4 fighters, just 4 fighters. Anybody can register in this. So we're going to have a registration open. Let's say next month we'll open up a registration. They don't have to be Brave fighters. You could be from any other promotion. This has nothing to do with Brave. This is going to be at the Combat Week, but it doesn't have anything to do with Brave. You could be from any promotion. Come, compete, and say that you're the pound for pound number 1 and go back to your promotion. Doesn't matter. This is just one event to say who's a pound for pound number 1. So we're going to do a registration. And anybody around the world can register in this competition.
Open invitational?
Yeah, so if we have, and finally we're going to select, we're going to close the registration maybe 3 months before the event, and then we're going to vet 50 people out of that, 50 top guys that we think, because at the end of the day we don't want a 0-20 fighting for pound against a 10-0, you know, it doesn't make sense. So we want to select the guys who have showcased their talent.
The credentials.
Exactly, so we're going to take all those stuffs and take top 50. And then we're going to start slowly, gradually reducing them into last 10, where we're going to be having a draw and pick 4 names. There's no matchmaking, there's nothing. 4 names will be picked, and these are all people who have registered to be the pound for pound number 1 as they think they want to be. We will offer the winner of that same day's tournament $150,000 for the winner, no tax, and and that'll be the prize money we're going to be offering the person. It's announced right now. We're supposed to be announcing it next month, but let's go ahead and do it right now, because you brought up the pound for pound. It was exactly what we wanted to talk about. We want to bring back, you want to talk pound for pound, let's talk pound for pound. But that is not a featherweight champion, that is not a pound for pound champion, that is a world champion. That is a world champion, and we're going to be creating a new title belt for that. It's going to be a world championship belt. It's going to be the most expensive and the largest combat sport belt in the history.
That's huge.
And that trophy will be compared to even with the FIFA World Cup. So this is going to be this November. We have a lot more work to do, because we just took that decision today, right now, but it's going to be, you know, we're going to make it happen. And this is something that His Highness Sheikh Khalid always had a call. And it's very interesting that you brought that up, because Sheikh Khalid always sits down and he says, who's the best in the world? You know, like, and I'm like, should we say heavyweights? Can we say heavyweight fighters are the best in the world? I don't know, you know. I mean, you could always, when you look at jiu-jitsu and you see the open weight class and how these guys like Bruno Malfacini is competing there and looking amazing, and you're like, if he could do that, and they have 10 different benefits or advantages over a heavyweight fighter, when you're a welterweight, you have unbelievable advantages and compete with the strength of a heavyweight, and it's not so bad. You can compete with that strength. You really don't know who's the best fighter in the world, you know. And then we talk about pound for pound, and we talk about, you know, he could be pound for pound. Let's not talk about pound for pound, you know, unless you're willing to go and compete in an actual pound for pound fight, you know. Till then, we don't have to speak about it. So I think His Highness Sheikh Khalid always loved the idea, and he said, this is what we're going to do. Let's put it out there. But we don't have the right to choose who fights who, you know. And we don't have the right to tell who's going to be fighting in this. We're going to open up a registration. I want the whole world to come on board. You are from Western promotion, Eastern promotion, whatever promotion you are, you're not a part of Brave. It's not just for Brave athletes. You could come and compete in this title belt. Hopefully you win it 3 times. We might not be able to do this every year. It might be every 2 years or every 3 years. We've got to find that decision. But whoever wins this title 3 times can take this title home to their country. And it's going to be the most expensive and the biggest title in the combat sport history. That's for sure. You know, and it's going to be something very interesting. We're going to have, so the November event is going to be showcasing the Amateur World Championship. It's going to be showcasing a Brave event that's going to be something similar to the best fighters fighting against each other. And then we're going to have a pound for pound, actual pound for pound fight night on a one-day tournament between the four fighters. So it's going to be an exciting month, and I think I'm looking forward to it more than any other combat week we've had. So I think mixed martial art needs that kind of value where we say, you talk about the football titles, you talk about the cricket titles, they all have value in their trophy. Today we have hundreds of world championship belts. You know, I mean, every promotion has a world championship belt, and everybody's like, that's welterweight world champion. Are you really a world champion? You know, I mean, all of us must have thought about it at some point. You know, we're like, we say world champion, but there's 100 world champions in MMA today. You know, I mean, like, how is that fair? You know, so this is going to be a world championship belt that is going to add value to mixed martial art as a sport. And that world champion is going to be a world champion. That world champion is going to carry a title in mixed martial art that is going to be valuable title belt. And this is what we want to give mixed martial art. And we have separated internally in the mixed martial art industry. We have made it worse. And we think we are in the right direction. And we always speak about how great we are in the combat sport compared to boxing and everybody else. But I think they're going in a very wrong direction. In the next 10, 15 years, we're going to finally see that the mixed martial arts essence is gone away. We don't have that anymore, and we are strictly in the event business, you know, and that's what we don't want to happen, you know. Today, it's only 25, 26 years old, you know. Let's stop and make the change now before it gets more worse, and that's what Brave Combat Federation, that's the vision of His Highness Sheikh Khalid, that's what we bring on the table, and November is another step to taking mixed martial arts value amongst the rest of the sports one step forward, that we can be proud as well, that you talk about the best title or the best trophy, check out what we have, you know, and that's gonna be a goal that every country would want in their country.
Well, President Shahid, thank you so much for being so gracious with your time, but we couldn't let you go without talking a little bit about this main card. In our opening bout of the main card, we have Ikram Aliskerov taking on Khamzat Chimaev. That fight for me, to open a main card, huge, and it illustrates the depth of the card, that this is opening the show. What are your thoughts on that fight?
Oh, it's unbelievable. I mean, like I said, the whole main card, you don't know who's going to win. You don't want none of them to lose. You know, you're in that position where it's going to be really tough. I mean, Ikram and Khamzat, both these guys, one of the things that people don't realize is if you saw the weigh-ins today, this is a fight that these two guys are friends. They know their teammates. They know where they're coming from. They know their fighting mentality. These guys know everybody the other guy knows. You know, so they know each other. They know their friends. They know everyone related to the other fighter. So it's just not two top fighters fighting each other. These are two guys who knows how the other guy is going to fight. They know everything about the other person. You know, so it's going to be very interesting to see how it's going to play out. Of course, Ikram has a lot of experience from the Sambo world of in actual competition experience. So I think that is going to be a big factor for Ikram. And you see how Khamzat fights. He's a guy who wants to go for the kill. You know, he's even though you see these two guys are friends, they shake hand at the weigh-ins, but you still see something in Khamzat's eyes. You know, that's scary. Something scary in his eyes every time he
There's
faces
a mystique around him. As soon as you see it, you get this sense that he's a born fighter.
Exactly, and he's going to come in, and I'm sure his mentality would be to go into the cage and try to kill his opponent as soon as possible. And just literally, that's the mentality I see in his eyes. It's not beat, it's kill as fast as I can, you know, and that's his mentality. But I think that's why Ikram's experience of what he had in his Sambo world is going to be really, really useful tomorrow. Tomorrow he would need that experience more than ever. That's I think going to be a big factor that's going to play out. But one thing we've missed out is you didn't realize how much support Khamzat has in Jordan. They were booing Ikram and they were cheering for Khamzat. So that's going to be something Khamzat's going to take with him to the fight.
And then moving on, we have a fight of two pioneers of their respective national sports. So you have Hashim Kavaga taking on Jeremy Pitbull Smith. As I say, two guys that were really, really forerunners, really leaders in MMA and in their respective countries.
Oh yeah. These two guys, when this matchup was made, one thing instantly that came into my mind was the name of Brave, Pride and Honor, and it really resembles that fight. And the reason why is, if you look at the history of Hashim's fights, it was nothing less than a movie. He's broken his cheekbones, and the history of his fight is something that he is who he is today because of his fights. Literally, that is one guy has become a legend, has become Hashim Arkhaga because of his fights, the perseverance he had during his fights, how he came back from fractured bones to winning the fights. it's insane. And Pitbull is one of the guys that can take punches and fight, stand up and fight, and he loves fighting. So that's a fight I think fight fans around the world is really going to enjoy. I don't know what's going to stop the fight, because if these guys can take hits, broken noses, broken cheekbones, fractured hands, and still continue to fight, I don't know what's going to stop the fight tomorrow when these two go against each other. It's going to be really interesting.
Then moving down the card, we have the Brave Combat Federation debut of Shorty Torres fighting Amir Albazi, two young, hungry lions of the flyweight division. This is a real marquee fight for me, and I think this is going to be huge for the flyweight division.
100%. We know Shorty from a very long time, and he was part of KHK team. We've seen his growth from the amateur level when he was a world champion at the MMA World Championship. We've seen him there. We scouted him from that time when he was an amateur fighter. Every time he had that one mentality that Shorty always had was learning. And anybody who knows Shorty, if you speak to people around him, you will know that that's a guy who has a mentality of learning and always improving. You're never going to see the same Shorty in the next fight, so he's always going to wanting to learn, so humble when he comes to our gym, and every time he meets his training partners at KHK, when he used to come down to Bahrain and do some of his training sessions, every time he never had this ego that I'm a world champion at amateur level, or I'm a big fighter. He always was sitting down and learning from anybody. Even if the guy is not a pro fighter, he would try to learn something from him. So that's one quality that Shorty has, that he's always going to come back from every fight, and there's nothing that is going to mentally put him in any trouble. And I think he's mentally a very, very strong athlete. That's going to show in his fight. I think in his fight tomorrow, that's going to show that he's a very strong mental fighter. It comes from his coaching background. I mean, even if you read the book of his coach,
Master Bob.
Yeah, Master Bob. If you read the book, I saw the book for the first time. He presented me the book, and I came to know, wow, And the reason why is, it's talking about one position in every possible way you could think of. I think he also considers breathing on his opponent as a weapon, and how to deal with it. I think so, because he's that scientific that everything matters. Every small thing that you never heard of matters, and he puts that on the line in his book. And that's something you see in Shorty Torres. You see that upbringing in Shorty Torres, in his fighting style. So I think that's going to be really, really important fight for Shorty Torres, and he's going to come as an improved fighter. But he's not fighting someone who's
that's not an easy fight. It's not a gimme fight at all.
It's not an easy fight. For his debut to be in Brave Combat Federation, that he knew that. He knew this coming. He knew that if I'm going to go to Brave, it's not about building me. It's not about any of those. I'm going to fight the best in the world. And when it comes to fighting the best in the world, he's literally fighting the best in the world. And I think you're going to see a first time the whole Iraqi fan base backing him, because we've never seen an Iraqi fighter as celebrated as Amir himself, So this is going to be something big for Middle East, something big for Iraq as a country, and he has so much weight on his shoulder that he's carrying as well. I don't know if he's taking that pressure. Today, I looked at him today and he was angry. He looked angry. He was the whole time at the press conference. He was angry. So I think he's taking all that and using that as a positive advantage. And let's see how that goes, and I still can't predict who's going to win that fight too.
Amir's super dangerous, 11-0 as a pro fighter with 10 finishes. So that's an illustration of just how dangerous he is. Moving on to our first of 3 title fights. Not 1, not 2, but 3 title fights on one card. We have Abdul Karim Al-Sawadi, the pride of Palestine, taking on a man who was arguably 4 seconds away from being crowned the champion a year ago in Luan Miao Santiago. Yes. Huge fight.
Oh, 100%. I mean, what are you going to say about this fight? I mean, if you look at Luan, I mean, technically the guy is unbelievable. I mean, he knows how to keep his distance better than anyone I've seen. So he can do that in-out movement. He can fight backwards, and that is an interesting thing that you don't see a lot in mixed martial art. And people who fight backwards is very dangerous when you don't want to strike with them. And if you are thinking, okay, I'm not going to strike with this guy, I'm going to go for the takedown, my strategy is going to be taking the guy down, this guy can fight backwards, it's terrible for you. That's one thing you wish he didn't have. And that's what Luan has. So I really want to know what would be the game plan of Salwadi. We should really ask him what his game plan is going to be. Can Salwadi stand up and fight? He can, because Salwadi keeps moving a lot. His head movements, he's got this awkward switching stance as well. He throws his punches from weird angles.
That's one thing we see. We see him improve with every fight.
Yes.
Whether it's adding a new wrinkle like his head movement, whether it's adding a new wrinkle to his ground game. With every fight that we've seen of his in Brave Combat Federation, he's added something.
he's an athlete like you could compare him with the best athletes in the world. I don't say mixed martial art, I'm talking about athletes. You look Cristiano Ronaldo in football, and one thing you know about these guys are you hear the story of their hard work. They are not a born talent, they are made talents, you know. So you have these guys who are naturally talented, who are gifted, you know, gifted by God, and then you have these guys who are built by themselves with hard work day and night, and all you see is training 24/7. You know, they're working out 24/7. They're never tired of working out. They love it and they never stop. Salwadi is that guy. Salwadi is the Cristiano Ronaldo of MMA in terms of work ethic, and anybody that went and trained with him in US, they all come back and say, this guy doesn't stop working out. He doesn't stop working out. He's competing every single day, and every hour of his day is workout, you know. Whether he's sleeping, he considers that as a workout and takes it seriously. So the work ethic is why we see a new Salwadi every time. There's no way he would be the same guy, and I don't think he's happy with who he is every fight. He just wants to get better and better, you know. His bars that he put for himself is really, really high, and I think that is a mentality and an actual athlete who would be remembered as a legend in the future. So I think he can pull out anything, but Luan, like I said, is going to be a tough matchup for Salwadi. It could be a worse matchup for anybody, but are you going to stand up with Luan, or are you going to take him down, but he still can fight backwards? So we got to see how it turns out. I think Salwadi can pull out a win in any case, because he's a hard-working fighter, but he has the toughest opponent today. I think Lucas was even a better matchup style-wise for Salwadi compared to Luan. Luan is a bad matchup style-wise, I think, so that's going to be a trouble for Salwadi. But looking forward to that title fight. Luan is very serious about getting the title, you know, and taking it back to Brazil. And Salwadi has his home crowd, you know.
We touched on it briefly, but let's talk a little bit more about just how important, how significant, not just in the context of Brave Combat Federation, but in the context of global MMA, how important will it be for us to crown the first globally recognized inaugural super lightweight champion?
Most important, because the value of why the super lightweight weight class is created is to bring the best out of the fighters. Simply, you don't want them to cut a lot of weight or go inside not saying that was not my natural weight. You want to fight at the weight you can be their best at, and that's the weight class you want these fighters. So you want to take the best out of the fighters. So the weight class is only to bring the best out of the fighters who are already at the top level, and then you inaugurate that with a fight like Eldar versus Munir, you know. And you're talking about a guy who has showcased he's the best, regardless of super lightweight weight class. He's shown he's the best in the region, and the athlete that the whole Middle East relied on to take the name of Middle East MMA at a global level. And today he's going to do that. Today is just 24 hours before he's going to showcase that the best fights in the world comes from Middle East, and he's that guy who can show that. He fights with Eldar, who is a monster. I mean, this guy is unbelievable. I mean, every time he goes for a fight, and I'm saying, what's your weight now? And he's like, now I'm walking at 90 kg. And I'm like, where is that 90 kg? Because you are ripped.
Solid.
He's
solid,
ripped.
yeah.
And I'm like, how are you going to go down from this, you know? And he still makes it, you know? And so, and when you see guys like that, and always fighting at 70 kg, Eldar, and he looks dead. He's like a zombie when he fights at 70 kg. And now you're giving him the opportunity to fight at an actual weight. That monster is gonna be something else. And then you see Munir, who's become a world champion, regional champion, the best in the whole of Middle East, at a weight class that was not his. And you give him the actual weight class. It's just the thing you wanted for a super lightweight title fight. You know, this is what you wanted. It's amazing, yeah. It's unbelievable. Two top guys already proved that they're the best, and now they get to be better at a weight class that they think is going to bring the best out of them, and they're going against each other.
That brings us nicely to our main event, the Jordanian Lion, Jarrah Al-Salawi, a proud champion, taking on perhaps his biggest threat so far in his professional career, Abdul Ragimov. That fight for me is worthy of main event status.
100%. Jarrah, he is a champion. He lives like a champion. He acts like a champion. He respects that he's a champion. I mean, he is outside of MMA a personality that the young future can actually look up to and say that although you want to be a fighter, you need to have education, you need to understand life, and he lives that kind of a life that is an example for the future generation, you know. So he is, I think, for me, a guy just like Salwadi. You see the improvement that he's having as well from fight to fight. It's unbelievable where he used to be 4 years back, and today he's a world champion, and it's something that he totally deserves to be. We've seen him get takedown in fights, stay there for a long time, pulled out victories at the last moment of the fights. His ground game is good, but one thing we know is that he can be taken down. One thing we know is that you can keep him down for a while. But yes, he does have his ground game and his jiu-jitsu. But then you're talking about Abdul, who is a wizard, who is like on his ground game. His grappling skills is second to none. And it's a really tough challenge for Jarrah. But the good thing about Jarrah, or his whole camp, you look at Jalal, Jarrah, the whole team, they might be a team that I've seen always can predict how the fight will go and how it will finish, because they literally 3 months, they just focus on a strategy, and they focus. I've never seen or heard of any camp that has focused on strategy and implementing strategy as much as Jarrah's camp has done. I've seen Jalal fight in India, and they actually tell me what's going to happen and what they've planned on. And then when they finish the fight, they come back running to me and they tell me, see what I told you? This happened, so you saw what it was. And I was like, wow, you know? And it's always been that story with Jarrah fighting Tahir Hadbij, with Jarrah fighting David Bear. Every single time they knew what was going to happen. And they put up a strategy, and they practice a strategy for 3 months non-stop, and they're coming in. So however good of a grappler Abdul is, you know, we know that is his strength, and we know that Jarrah could be caught up on the floor and kept there for a while, and it's going to be one of the riskiest and the hardest fight for Jarrah. But you can never take away his camps and his coach's skills of strategizing a fight and putting a strategy that can actually work. And it's happened. They're like literally, they could predict and it would happen, you know, and it's happened in most of their camp. And I think that is one thing that Jarrah will come in, and when we think whatever we predict here based on the skills of fighting, that's one thing, but we have no idea what's the strategy that they've planned, you know, and they can plan a strategy and it will work. And that's why Jarrah is a champion today and he's kept that image of being a world champion. It's a tough fight, it is a main event, and it is going to be a fight that is so big for Jordan to showcase that Jarrah is Jordan's champion. He is that Jordanian boy, like your poster boy for Jordan. You know, Jarrah. Nobody can be a poster boy for Jordan as much as Jarrah is. So he's gonna really showcase and take that pride on his back, and he's gonna be going for the fight. But I would always be scared to fight a guy like Abdul forever, you know. I mean, if you saw his open workout and you see the guy's understanding of his body and how much he can manage his own body, you know that this guy is someone you don't want to fight. And we've seen that in Pakistan when he fought against an athlete much bigger than him.
Rodrigo Caballero, huge.
Rodrigo was nowhere. It was 2 different weight classes, and not just one weight class. It was 2 weight classes above, it looked like. And everybody who was sitting with me, they didn't know MMA because I had a lot of VIP sitting with me, and the guys who know MMA, they're like, why do you make a fight if they're not in the same weight class? I said, this, you won't believe it, but this is a weight class they both are on, you know? And everybody's like, you're just gonna kill this poor guy, because they don't know who's fighting. And then they see the fight and they're like, wow, you know, who is this guy? This guy's crazy, you know. I mean, how can he manhandle, take this guy down much more bigger and stay there and not feel like it's taking a toll on him? That's the funny thing. Yeah, as the round goes by, he's gonna get tired now. You know, how many more times and he's gonna continue doing it. I don't think he feels anything. I don't think there's lactic acid producing in his body. None of those things happen, you know. So it's the greatest matchup we could have. I mean, the whole fight card is insane. The 3 title fights are a treat for Jordan, a treat for MMA community. I think tomorrow is just going to be a day where I'm going to sit down and forget everything else and just enjoy mixed martial art, because this is what it was all about, you know, to bring the best to fight against each other. And tomorrow the result is going to show. You're going to see the best fighting against each other, and we can just enjoy true mixed martial art, you know, and keeping every other politics and everything else aside, just focus on the best fighting the best.
Well, ladies and gentlemen of the Brave Nation, there you have it, from the Hawks Corner. Thank you very much for your time, President Shahid. From myself, Phil Campbell, and my broadcast partner, the OG of the mixed martial arts game, Kirik Jenness, stay true, stay brave.